Lee had a great presentation about being open and inviting, and looking at uh, trying to bring new, different people into Rotary through different kinds of settings. Certainly, Gay had an interesting idea about a student where there is no Rotaract club available. Um, the idea that we would embrace and bring someone on into Rotary who really seriously wants to be in Rotary. And so the idea that we are including new people, different kinds of folks, trying to move our times of our meetings around, uh, coming up with new meeting formats that are inviting to people. The idea of this hybrid approach of having an in person meeting but at the same time streaming that meeting. At least one person already today has talked about that. I know of embarking on that approach as well, so that folks can view the meeting later or can stream from wherever they are if they can't get to that particular in person meeting. But one of the things that we're realizing is that there are a lot of new folks coming into Rotary that know nothing about Rotary. So, this presentation, just for a short amount of time, is to think about what are those elevator speech topics that when someone asks you serious questions about Rotary, or let's say it's a prospective member, or it might even be a new member that you're trying to onboard or you're trying to orient in the older technology, go through the orientation. What are those kinds of questions? And what is it that we should be telling our newest members or our prospective new members? Several of us that have participated in training for new presidents uh, through PETS is we're noting more and more, especially in smaller clubs, that often brand new presidents are inaugurated and they are given the gavel, and they may have only been in Rotary 6 months. They may have been only in Rotary less than a year. And so, how is it that we get the message across about what Rotary is, and what are those things that we need to be telling them? So, here are some thoughts. Certainly, these are the kinds of things that you might have handy to you. This comes right out of some of the Rotary information from My Rotary and from other Rotary sources. You can Google Rotary information, Google Rotary history. It's amazing how much information is out there. So here we are. We're all kinds of different folks. I love the third one. We're opportunity creators. I love the taking who we are and what we've learned in our businesses or our professions, and we're applying those to issues that need solutions. Lee asked the question, what are those things in your community that are problems that are disguised as opportunities for your club to work on? And then there's also other things about how we behave as Rotarians. The whole idea that uh, we are responsible leaders in our community. We are those that can make a difference both at home in our communities, but then not being bounded by our city limits and working all around the world. One is, well, what is our vision? What is Rotary attempting to be? What are we wanting to be as Rotarians? Really, here is what you've already heard today, but another look at it. You know, we are folks that come together and we are taking action, not just sitting on our backsides, not just sitting in our chairs at meetings, but we really get up and we create lasting change. And that is, again, this geographical issue that we are not constrained by just the city limits of our communities, but we are also creating lasting change across the globe. As we heard from Floyd Lancia earlier this morning, the idea that we are on the cusp of eliminating a dread disease all across the globe and are close to doing that. You know, Rotary has the capacity through all of these members all across the world to really affect change in a really serious and material way. And why wouldn't we want to be a part of such of an organization, especially if it's fun? As you all know, in many of our clubs, we're adding that fifth tenet to the four-way test. Is it fun? And it should be. And especially in that little logo in the right-hand corner of this screen, we're really lifting up others. We're lifting up young leaders who want to be mentored, who want to learn about leadership, who want to learn about how to be in service to others. They want to gain contacts and learn people within within the communities that are leaders. And why would we not want to be a part of that? And why would we not want to share that with others? So then the question might be for someone who's a prospective member, what do Rotarians do? Or what is it that we might think about doing? Think about what Sam Scroggins talked about with visioning. Well, number one, service above self, right? We serve others. This integrity thing is all throughout the four-way test, that as we share ourselves across the community as Rotarians, others are looking at us and they recognize that integrity that we bring to what we do because it is who we are. I love this piece and better understanding around the world. A lot of folks do not know anything about peace scholars and the fact that even our district has had scholarship recipients who have traveled abroad and have been a part of King's College in London in their peace program and have gotten master's degrees with that as a specific emphasis around what they want to do and what they want to be in the world. We're participating in that with our own district. And then other things. I love the goodwill and better friendships part of the four-way test. But this fellowship and mentoring and contacts and is as we think about how important that is to young professionals to get established and to learn and become friends with and colleagues of others that are leaders. And this last bullet here is very, very important. We are changed, we are affected, we are impacted as we do work and especially service opportunities with other professional and community leaders. We ourselves are changed. So then, someone might say, well, gosh, this is interesting. Is it just a local organization? Is it just an opportunity? Is the road just what I in this particular meeting or this particular service project? And of course, the answer to that is, as we all know, is we're one of the largest, if not the largest, service related organizations across our globe. Incredible the reach and the capacity that Rotarians have as we work together, uh, both locally, regionally, and internationally. So then someone might ask, well, where did Rotary come from? Is it a relatively new organization? Well, we all know the answer to that, don't we? Getting a little feedback, so somebody needs to mute. But we all began with Paul Harris. You all know about Paul Harris. You know about Paul Harris Fellowships. Our newest members have no idea. And so the idea that this is a over 100-year-old organization, now in its second 100 years, and the whole idea and the premise behind Rotary was to come together and to make contacts and friendships and to exchange ideas. And the Rotary thing came from the meeting at each other's businesses. So here are the first 4 Rotarians that ever were. And so here's a little bit more about them. Gus Lower was a mining engineer. Sylvester Shield was a coal dealer. Hiram Shorey was a merchant tailor. And then they had a 20% growth. They added another member at their very next meeting, Harry Ruggles, a printer. Well, that helped them to begin to get the word out. And so very quickly, Rotary began to spread. Well, if you're a history buff, what did that look like? Well, within eight months, there were 23 members in this Chicago club number one. Within less than a year, clubs were forming in other U.S. cities because it was such a compelling idea. And then it jumped the Atlantic and became an international organization. We all know about Interact. Well, that all began in 1962, linking Rotarians with young, aspiring leaders and teaching them leadership and service within their high school settings. College and professionals, we all know about Rotaract, but a new Rotarian doesn't. Well, those began and came on board in 1968. We all remember, some of us had been around in Rotary a while, that there were international cultural exchanges, sending groups of young professionals, non-Rotarians, with a Rotary leader to go abroad and spend some weeks abroad and learn a different culture. John Jetter led a group in Japan. Youth exchanges then came next, and Barbara Turner in Gun Barrel City and Maybank and all of that. Barbara was one of our great leaders in this district for youth. It's an opportunity to grow again in this district. And we all know, and we heard from Floyd this morning about how Rotary joined and uh, ordained this whole partnership in the 1988 timeframe, agreed upon at a Rotary International Convention, and the whole polio eradication initiative began then. Women were admitted in 1989. It was a fight. It took a Supreme Court ruling to make that happen. A lot of Rotarians aren't aware that that was a hurdle, that was a barrier that was erected and fought over in even the court systems. Ultimately, with that court ruling, Rotary then got with the program and admitted women, and aren't we glad that happened? And now we're in over 200 countries with over 35,000 clubs, an incredible reach of Rotary and what it can do across the world. So beyond history, this whole idea of image, does Rotary even matter? Is it relevant in this kind of world? Well, of course it is. And we all know that there are 7 areas of focus. Now 7, there used to be 6. And I'll just touch on this because Ted Huffines may talk about it later. But here are those 7, and the last one being environmental solutions. Very, very important as we think about plastic out into the oceans and the idea of circular economies and trying to deal with some of the waste and the pollution and other issues. Global warming certainly is one that comes to mind. What might we do with the 1.2 million people working on things along these subject lines and others, but really trying to focus our efforts. Rotary is best when we focus. And then finally, disaster relief. My goodness, think of all the hurricanes and our poor friends in Louisiana, but that have been recipients of some of that disaster relief that was focused through Rotarians helping with those communities that were so devastated by the hurricanes. So then somebody might say, well, this takes a lot of money. Well, how does Rotary do that? Well, Arch Klump began the Rotary Foundation in 17. He was the Rotary International president at the time. And there was an initial gift that in today's dollars is about $26.50. And then over the years, you heard that not only through polio, but just the general foundation, one of the largest philanthropic foundations in the world, the Rotary Foundation has raised and spent over $4 billion. In fact, that $26.50 start, the Rotary endowment funds now have over $1 billion of value in those funds as they focus on those now 7 areas of focus. And the beautiful part is we've been the recipient in this district of some of those global grants and the monies that Ted will talk about shortly, and how that money is then put to work all across the globe. We have great experience with that in our district, and are a leader in some of those efforts. So then somebody else may say, well, what else does the Rotary Foundation do? Well, we all know about polio, the signature effort by the Rotary Foundation. But do we know anything about it? Uh, you may know that in 1979, Rotarians in the Philippines said, well, there are 6 million children in our island nation. Let's eradicate polio right here where we live. And they did it. And then they came to the World Health Organization and said, we've got about $100 million we'd like to throw at this problem. And the World Health Organization is thinking, not only has there been a success story that Rotarians have ordained in the Philippines, but now there's funding. And so that all came together. And in 1985, we've already talked about how that whole global polio eradication initiative began, and how Rotary took that lead and still does. And so we heard from Floyd that there were 1,000 cases a week. I'm sorry, a day. And so over 355,000 cases a year at that point. So then by 1994, our whole hemisphere, North and South America, was polio free. 2000, all of that Pacific region was free of polio. By 2006, here were the only countries left that still had wild polio virus endemic in their areas. And heard about India and Floyd's his upfront and personal involvement in celebration. Africa was polio free in 2017, but then there was a wild polio case by whatever reason in Nigeria. And so they had to fight that off and take that outbreak and get control of it. And then 3 years later, Africa now is polio free yet again this past August. So here we stand year to date. There's still work to be done, as Floyd talked about. We're raising 150 million a year. A lot of folks are not aware of that, how generous Rotarians are, and that it is being matched, as Floyd talked about, with this 2-to-1 match, making that 150 million grow to 450 million each year. Those of us that have been to international conventions have seen celebrations of governments and NGOs and others who have pledged over 6 billion to complete this task. So we will be polio free, and we will do that through Rotarians' continued leadership. Real quickly, then, where are we going with Rotary? This whole idea of visioning. Well, Rotary's doing that as well. But here's our founder's very quotable quote. We really about what we do and what we accomplish. You and your clubs are known by what you do and what you accomplish, that whole image thing. And so we've heard already today about how Rotary is evolving and changing. And we know in our district that we've had clubs from 5 members for years, one club up in the northeast part of our district. And they held on and they held on, and they said, we're not going to die, we're not going to close. And they have grown dramatically. And we also know of very, very large clubs in some of the major cities that are 300 and 400, 500 Rotarians who have to be with essentially waiting lists to get in. I would suggest that more Rotary clubs need to be formed if you have people wanting to get in and they are on some sort of a holding pattern. But each club is different. As you've talked today and in the chat room, you've seen projects and things and approaches that different clubs are doing that are all different. And that's exciting because that's where we need to be. Young people are joining, and we know that millennials are driven because they want to make a difference. That's important for us to realize. Now, those of us who've been around the block in Rotary, we certainly enjoy visiting with our friends each week and catching up. But then also this idea of mentoring and bringing young people on. Some clubs are great check writers. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not. Because again, many of our community leaders and others that have been successful Rotarians are known to be very generous. Other clubs are very much hands on. So we think about those clubs that meet for service projects, and that's one of their biggest meeting opportunities is getting together to do things that matter physically. Some meet weekly, some meet on a particular hour, on a particular day. We realize more and more how much a barrier that is to entry. And so the idea of meeting digitally, meeting for service projects, meeting in social settings, meeting at different times during, you've already heard that today, and it should resonate with us all because as Rotary can be flexible, we will be more inviting and more engaging to others who might want to be a part of what you see in this presentation. And then you heard from Sam, and I totally underscore what he said. As we've watched those clubs across this district that have had visioning sessions, those are the clubs that are growing. Those are the clubs that are dramatically moving forward because they've thought about who they are and they're planning for what they want to accomplish and what they want to become. And they're setting measures and goals and timelines and working to achieve those. It's important for those clubs that have been visioning clubs that they go back and really revisit that vision and come back around to it 2 or 3 years later, see how they're doing, and then look forward to what changes need, what edits need to be made to our vision, what new has come up that we need to embrace, and continue moving and being flexible. So if you have questions, we can entertain them. I can entertain them now. I am going to be retiring. So mark that date on the wall that you see. My email that you see here will work until November 30th. I'm working to get a new Gmail account set up. It's easier to remember. You can get me by the cell phone. I'd love to come and share some of this with your club. If you have new members, and you're interested in using this tool as an orientation tool for your new members, I can make that available to you. If you have a need or an interest in getting prospective Rotarians together and just talking about what Rotary is and why they might aspire to be members, I'd love to come post November 30th and come visit with you in person or visit with you by Zoom. We can do it just like we did today. Any further questions?
Carroll,
Just a
I'm not seeing
comment,
any
Carroll.
on chat. I think you're
Okay.
good.
Yeah, just to follow up, thank you for even offering about the orientation and the new member information. I call it information night. It could be an information event, but this is a great outline to follow, and we're training constantly. We're training non-members, we're training new members, we're training existing members. It's a constant educational opportunity to get the word about Rotary and our terrific history, our terrific legacy. And I would just like to challenge each of the clubs and each of the members to realize that not only are we living a legacy, but we are creating one from today forward for your community, your club, and the district.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Carroll. Thank you for all the presenters this morning. We've had a fun-filled, packed, informative session this morning, and we look forward to taking a break now until 12:25. When we get back, past District Governor Ted Huffines will present foundation ideas, the foundation, and have some presenters help him do that. So be back at 12:25, and we will continue We're on schedule. I've been interrupting a little bit. I apologize for that, but I think we need to stay on schedule. I'm really happy that we're doing a Zoom today where we don't have to socially distance or wear masks. Isn't it wonderful to be able to sit and participate in this as we go? Thank you. See you.